in the times of Enosh, people were very smart. They were so smart that they had too much wisdom. Too much wisdom is, I don't know, I guess not always good, especially if you don't know what to do with it. First of all, they were expert in sorcery and witchcraft. They knew how to manipulate the external, impure forces of creation. In addition to that, at the time, they still all spoke the holy tongue, Lashon Kodesh, which is the language of creation. Now, perhaps now we'll discuss a little bit about the difference between Lashon Kodesh and all other languages. Again, here historically we're before the Tower of Babel, where God dispersed the people and gave them all different languages, which is the beginning of 70 nations and 70 languages. Until now, mankind was essentially one unit of people that spoke one language. They were, as the verse says, before the building of the Tower of Babel, one people with one tongue, one purpose. So that language, according to the Zohar, was Lashon Kodesh. They spoke the language of creation. So let's understand a little bit about the power behind the language of creation. We'll then appreciate, how these people, the generation of Enosh, was so powerful. So all languages, what are languages? A language is essentially the agreement of a group of people to use sounds and a combination of sounds and symbols to represent things and ideas in order that we should communicate. Remember, a human being is the pinnacle of all of creation. We are the only people that have understanding and perception of our own existence and ideas and feelings and thoughts. And the way we communicate them to another person is through speech. It's revealed through speech, through language. And of course, this is how people communicate. This is how countries communicate. Just look at two countries that don't speak the same language. That's exactly what happened in the Tower of Babel. Give me a hammer and you got a punch. You can't get along that way. You need a common language to be able to communicate. So that's what God gave us through the beautiful gift of speech. That's why man is called a speaker, a speaking person, a medaber. So the regular languages, for example, you have a book. Right? Here's a nice book. This happens to be a siddur, but for now we're going to just really acknowledge it as a book. Everybody got that over there? Book. So when we talk in English, we'll pick English. So take a book. When you say in English, book, so we know you mean this, which is a collection of thoughts and ideas written down, get binded in a unit, a book. There's no correlation between the word book, B-O-O-K, and what I'm holding. It's just, that's the symbols and sounds through the language and letters of English to tell me that this is a book. Same thing with many other different things. For example, Adam in Hebrew, well, we're still in English. Man, M-A-N, man. That means, hopefully us, if we behave. So there's no correlation though between the word M-A-N, man, and a man. This is not the case with Hebrew, Lashon Kodesh. In Lashon Kodesh, the word sefer, samech, pei, resh, are the letters and word itself from conception, that God created these letters and He gave them their shape and their combination into the word sefer, which brings the concept of sefer into the world and really allows that sefer could exist. The 22 letters of creation, where all of what we see in the world comes to being, was created through God's divine speech. God spoke, and the world came into being. And God spoke in Lashon Kodesh using these 22 letters of creation, which brought everything into existence in the 10 commandments, the 10 utterances in the beginning of creation. So it's exactly God's divine speech that makes everything exist, and these are those 22 letters. So the same 22 letters, they are the building blocks, the DNA, so to speak, of all of existence. So when a person uses these 22 letters, for example, Samach Pei Resh, and says the word Sefer, so that word that he pronounces, Sefer, even if it's not literally in the 10 utterances, but through different gateways and connections, permutations, numerical values, all of the Hebrew words in Lashon Kodesh are all connected to these original 10 utterances. So the word Sefer, Samach Pei Resh, gets its vitality from the original speech of God, and therefore it becomes the language of creation, and there's an intrinsic connection between the word Sefer and book. For example, look at the wonders of Hebrew. The word book, sefer, is also the same 3 root letters for the word story, sipor, which a book tells a story. Now, sefer, sipor, and there's now also the letters samach pei resh tell me about the word mispar, number. Why so? Because every word in Hebrew has a numerical value, which it's like formula, which connects it to its sources and connects different words that have the same numerical value with one another. Now, take also Adam. Adam is the name that God gave man. Now, in the words Adam, Aleph, Dalet, Mem, so there's deep mystical reasons and connections behind it. The word Adam, when it says that God's name is called upon us, so the word Adam has within it a hint to one of God's names, because the numerical value of Adam is 45, and so too one of God's names, when it's spelled out in a particular way, equals 45. And this could be the deeper meaning behind this expression that we say on the holidays. We say that Shimcha HaGadol VaKadosh, your great and holy name, is called on us. Why? Because when you say Adam, you also within that is in this cryptid way the name of Hashem. Anyway, that's a little bit to appreciate and understand about the holy tongue. Now let's go back to our actual discussion. So in this generation of Enosh, the people were all well versed in the holy tongue and all of these secrets, the secrets of creation, the secrets of sorcery and witchcraft. So they had all this knowledge and all this these capabilities. Now, you could go in 2 directions with all of this. You could follow in the path of Hashem loyally and obediently and not play with fire, so to speak, because then you get burned. Or you can decide to play thinking you're not going to get burned. So until the days of Enosh, Adam and his descendants and Shet, all the people until the days of Enosh were afraid and did not get involved in witchcraft, sorcery, and did not try to misuse the secret, keys of creation. They understood these concepts because it was taught to Adam, who taught it to Shet, but they did not use them. They were told it's usher from God, and they were obedient. Enosh came into the world and was taught all of these deep secrets from Shet, of course told it was usher, but he unfortunately fell to the temptation. He saw that with these ideas, with this sorcery and the Lashon Kodesh, he can use all of this to manipulate the world and gain anything he wanted and arise to the highest levels of power. So he's the first person that started to wrongfully use these hidden knowledges, these deep knowledges that we mentioned. Now, one more thing we need to make clear is there are 2 channels that we can receive from above, we can receive from God. There is the channel which is within the realm of holiness, which is the proper way to receive from God. And then we can, leave the side of holiness and turn to the impure external realms to receive from. And in doing so, we disconnect from Hashem. So Enosh essentially in his generation decided to take all this knowledge and turn away from the side of Kedusha, the side of holiness, and turn to the impure external forces, which the Zohar calls Klipot and Sitra Achra. It's the realm of impurity, and he turned to that realm and began to manipulate everything. Using Lashon Kodesh, he was also able to manipulate even beyond that, and that is why God eventually changes the Lashon to not Lashon HaKodesh, because the Lashon HaKodesh is so powerful that the letters themselves are the building blocks of creation, that when you use Lashon HaKodesh, you're able to actually, your words go up to the heavens and affect in the highest heavenly realms. So until he changed the languages, they were even able to affect not only the external forces, but the internal forces as well. We're told in the same Zohar that I'm quoting all of this from, that in those days they were able to summon heavenly angels and different, spiritual, celestial beings. They were able to summon them and make them take oaths to do their bidding. And in this way, they were able to control the world. This is what they were able to do in those days. In any event, all of this started with the decision of Enosh to depart from the proper path. And from then on, he not only practiced these forbidden, activities, but he taught them to the masses. And the Zohar actually records that in the times of Enosh, even children were taught how to do all of this. Children. By the time we reached the generation of the flood, so the entire world was corrupt. in wickedness and evil, trying to misuse these keys to the world for their own personal benefit. Finally, God says, with such corruption, I'm wiping out the world. And at that point, he destroys all of mankind on the face of the earth. Now, unfortunately, things didn't improve so much. After the world was destroyed, leaving just Noah and his family, they were among the few righteous, loyal people. There were a handful of people throughout history that were still loyal to God. They tried to fight against, not sure how much they fought against, but Noah did speak up against this wrong behavior, and he did notify the world that a flood was coming. So, unfortunately, after the flood, the generations quickly went back to this wrong path of idol worship. Nimrod, being one of the great world leaders and a self-appointed god, was behind the building of the Tower of Babel. And at that point, they again were trying to misuse Lashon Kodesh to, access these forces for their own gain. And the Tower of Babel was an attempt to rebel against God. And, actually, it's at this point that one of the rabbis in the Zohar asks, how foolish could the people have been to rebel against God? What were they thinking they would gain? If they know that God existed, how can they try to manipulate and misuse his world for their own benefit? Didn't they know that God would punish them and this was in the time of the flood, that he would bring a flood upon them and destroy them? So he explains what they thought was that since they had all the keys of creation in their hands, they wrongfully, this is really foolish, they foolishly concluded that even if God would decree that he would bring a flood upon them or bring a fire upon them and destroy the world, that they could control the angel of fire and the angel of water, that even God's decree, God's verdict and judgment would not be able to come to fruition. That's how far they went with their backwards thinking. And of course, they were shown that they were wrong when they were destroyed, them and of course in the Tower of Babel as well. Anyway, this is the deeper appreciation and the mystical explanation of where idol worship really began, and its full appreciation, a bit more of its deeper powers.